Are you a fan of pro wrestling, comedy, and combat sports? Then we have the podcast for you because we cover that and much, much more.
Do you like to debate with your friends? Do we have the perfect segment for you? It's the 531, where we take any given subject, break it down to a top 5. From there, we debate it down to 3, and then into that number 1 spot.
If you want to get a hold of us, find us on our social medias. Search Working Fans Podcast on any major social media platform. And if you want to find the podcast, search for us on any major podcast platform, as well as YouTube.
Working Fans Podcast. We put in the work so you don't have to.
Business episode 9, where I will be talking the third to last the fourth to last Freddy movie that I plan to be covering. Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. This movie is an hour and 29 minutes, directed by it came out in 1991. At a budget of around $11 million. Its opening weekend in US and Canada was $12,966,525, coming out on September 15th, 1991. Now, the gross in both US and Canada and worldwide is $34,872,033. So you can see financially it was worth them to continue the series on. But in this movie, and definitely in the next one, I'll be talking about where the film starts to feel more tired to me. Now, in part 6 of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, dream monster Freddy Krueger has finally killed all the children of his home and seeks to escape its confines to hunt for fresh. To this end, he recruits the aid of his previous unmentioned daughter. However, she discovers the demonic origin of her father's powers and meets him head on in a major actors in this movie. Robert Englund comes back as Freddy. Lisa Zane stars as his daughter. Sean Greenblatt is John Doe. Leslie Dean is Tracy. Ricky Dean Logan is Carlos. Breckin Meyer is Spencer. Yaphet Kotto is Doc. Tom Arnold plays the childless man. Roseanne Barr plays the childless woman. And that's from a scene where they go to this town where John Doe is from, and there's no kids in this hometown, and all the people seem like, kind of, I don't know, not obsessed with the kids, but intrigued by them. But they also say they're what brings Freddy. So this movie got a 4.7 out of 10. It was a good enough movie, but I was getting tired by this point. I've been going in waves. I mentioned it the last couple movies where I get tired of the movies. Then there's a facet of the story that gives you a little more on Freddy's character, so it gets interesting. At this point, the series really feels like it's overstaying its welcome. And what's not overstaying its welcome is the reads that we always try and get in, because we are brought to you by Barry, available at WrestleVille.com. On Amazon.com, you can get all of the following books, including Super Vows and Pas de Deux, written by friend of the show, Kevin Kelton. I'll Be Here All Week and All That's Left, written by Ward Anderson, as well as his stand-up special. Former guest of the show, Brian R. Solomon's book, Blood and Fire, the unbelievable real-life story of wrestling's original Sheik. Pat Oates' book, How Not to Suck at Comedy. Trying to get the graphic up here. It is also available on Amazon, as well as Map Memories by John Arezzi and Greg Oliver. We are brought to you by the great people over at Connecticut People Records. And check out our wrestling commentary home of New Heights Wrestling. Now, despite having a couple technical difficulties today, we're not having difficulty with the fun facts brought to you by IMDb. Peter Jackson was originally hired to write the screenplay for this film. He wrote a draft, but it wasn't used. He later went on to become big for the Lord of the Rings films. That original screenplay saw Freddy aging and growing weak within the dream world. The teens of Springwood would have drug-fueled slumber parties for kicks and enter the dream world to beat him up. This is the first Nightmare on Elm Street film to not end in a cliffhanger. Although the movie is said to be the final installment of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, Robert Englund would return as the iconic horror antagonist again for a New Nightmare, which is the next movie we will be covering, and played the role one last time in Freddy vs. Jason, which will be Saturday's release here. Now, this was Breckin Meyer's first theatrical role. Alice Cooper has an uncredited role as Freddy's father, and he previously co-wrote and performed the theme song for Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. Both that film and this film are the 6 films in the series. This was the 4th highest grossing film in the series. During Tracy's dream sequence, the band Sepultura's name can be seen underneath the mirror as she leans down to wash her face. Huge fan of Sepultura, so I was glad to see that in there. This is the first Nightmare on Elm Street film to not have the words Elm Street in the title. This trend would continue for the rest of the series, not counting the remake, which we will be covering Sunday. And I talked about it yesterday. Very excited to cover that for you guys, because I've been feeling burnt out on the series, and I feel like that's going to be a modern remake, a modern take on it. This is the first film in the series to not include the little girls jumping rope singing Freddy's rhyme, the thing that would happen a lot in Nightmares. On September 12th, 1991, a day before the U.S. release of this movie, Los Angeles declared it Freddy Krueger Day. This was 6 films into the series, so he had gotten to be an icon at that point and got rewarded with a day. And this was the highest opening weekend of the series until the release of Freddy vs. Jason. I'm sorry that these last couple Freddy reviews have been they've been a little more lackluster and just not filled with the excitement that I had at the beginning, because, like I said, marathon them all, and it started to feel like a bit much. Probably would have been a good idea to break them up, but not knowing the series, I wanted to dive into it. And I hope to pick up the energy more when we're looking at, like, Monday, I'll be covering the Twilight Zone. So that'll be a single film. Tuesday, I'm going to be doing The Ring, and Wednesday, The Ring 2. So it's going to be doing another series there. Thursday, we'll be doing Rings. We've got the 2 Ouija movies, Friday and Saturday. And then starting Sunday the 16th, I've got The Hills Have Eyes originals. And then Monday the 17th, I'm going to do the remake. And I'm going to do that with a couple more films. We've got The Omen coming up on the 20th and 21st, doing the original and the remake. Doing the same with It on the 22nd and 23rd. And then we're going back to the Conjuring series through the 24th through the 26th. So stay with us. We're going to be bringing you definitely those set horror movies, and we're going to be having some extras thrown in there as well. And I am working on a big surprise for Halloween, hoping to bring in a guest, talk their favorite horror movie. Details about that will be released going forward. So thank you for putting up with the process of this, because ever since we started the Working Fans podcast, it's mainly pro wrestling, MMA, and comedy. But then there's also things where we've wanted to branch out, and this was an experiment. Can we do a video release every day of October featuring a different movie? Obviously, things could be worked in that plan, but I think it's been going well. And, you've been along with us for the ride. So come back tomorrow. Friday, we'll close out the week with Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I will see you guys then.